Hey and welcome! I added some new features to my free Blender add-on JMesh Tools, for example a mirror option for primitives. So let's have a look. I pressed this button to enter the primitive mode. This is Blender 2.9, an experimental build. And now I have the option here in the on-screen display to press the M key to set the mirror axis for the primitive that I'm going to use. In this example, I will do a difference operation with a rectangle. So I snap the view and draw this onto this simple mesh, and as you can see it is created on the other side as well. And now I can press the E key to extrude the primitive and then Ctrl left click to cut into the mesh. And this is a new feature that you can use for each primitive, circle, rectangle or the polyline. Okay, now let's modify this mesh a bit. I go to edit mode and select the face at the front. Then I press the I key to add an inset and use the selected tool Extrude Dissolve and Intersect to move this face into the mesh, just to, create something a bit more interesting. And now that we have this, let's bevel this in object mode. I press this button here in the JMesh panel to add a bevel modifier and a smooth shading. To make the edges look more crisp, I decrease the offset of the bevel a bit. And now I'll go ahead and add another cut to show you another feature which is called Extrude Immediately. So I checked this here in the JMesh panel. And then, as we did before, I draw the rectangle onto the mesh. And now I don't have to press the E key to extrude, the primitive is extruded automatically. Then I press Ctrl left click again to cut into the mesh, and now the next feature can be seen. The bevel is still active. This means the edges are marked as sharp edges after the cut. Okay, now I want to add a round bevel to this edge, so I remove the sharpness, then I press Ctrl and B to add a bevel. Okay, let's continue. The next thing is to cut a hole into the mesh. And to do this, I change the primitive type to circle by pressing the P key. And then I draw a circle again with the mirror option activated for the x-axis. And then press Ctrl left click to cut through the mesh. And now comes the next feature. I want to keep the position of the primitive because I want to slice around the cut. So I change the operation to slice, then I right click because then I can resize the primitive but keep the location as is. And then I press Ctrl left click to add the slice. A new object is created and the bevel is still active. Alright, now let's add a material. I defined this dark and a light, kind of metallic material, and this is nice for prototyping your mesh. I assigned the materials now to the different objects and this looks quite nice. Let's continue. What can we do next? How about slicing at this area here, at the back side? So I change again to rectangle and draw with the mirror option enabled onto the mesh and extrude to the inside. And Ctrl left click to add another slice. I select the new objects and assign the light metallic material. Okay, then I select these two edges. I keep them sharp and press Ctrl and B to add bevels, but I remove the segments by scrolling down the mouse wheel. And this looks more and more interesting. And now let's add some insets here along the y-axis. Again, I use the rectangle but change the operation to difference by pressing the O key. And then I press F to draw the rectangle from the center. Okay, like that, and then I extrude just a tiny bit. And Ctrl and left click to cut into the mesh. Okay, looks nice. Now how about adding some kind of metal insets to the top of the mesh? I use rectangle and slice and don't draw from the center. No mirror this time. Okay, like that. Extrude again and press Ctrl left click to slice. Okay, nice, but I want to have a few of them. So I press G followed by X to move the primitive along a local x-axis, and again Ctrl left click to slice with the same primitive 3 times. Now we have 3 new objects. I select these and press Ctrl and J to join them. Then I assign again the light metal and go to edit mode and move these faces a bit to the inside. Press G followed by Z to move them along the Z axis. Okay, let's add some more. How about some circles here at this area? Again, I extrude and slice and assign the light metal. This is just prototyping with materials, but anyway, looks really nice. Okay, one more slice, a last one at this area with a rectangle. And what you can do afterwards is to go to edit mode and select these edges and add a small bevel, and this is a pretty nice effect. Okay, what I also want to do is to improve the rendering a bit. So go to the render properties and enable ambient occlusion and bloom and increase the quality of the shadows. I also enable the scene lights in the viewport shading and increase the strength of the studio light. Okay, now the really last thing that I want to add is a union. And to do this, I use the circle primitive, set the operation to union, then draw the circle onto the mesh with the mirror for the x-axis enabled. I press G then with the view snapped, followed by Y to constrain it to the local y-axis of the primitive, and then E to extrude the primitive downwards. Okay, and now press Ctrl left click, and as you can see, it is unioned with the mesh. And also the beveling is still active. Alright, and now let's go crazy and cut a hole into this. First set the operation to difference. Then I right click to reset. And then I can adjust the size and cut with the same primitive into the mesh, but I have to move it upwards first. It resets to the original location. You can regard it as a bug that I have to address. Okay, but a very nice result in the end. I hope you like the new features of the add-on. If you have ideas for new features, then add these as issues to my GitHub, so I can take these into consideration. The link is added to the description below. So that's it. I hope you liked the video, guys. If you do, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Support me by being my patron. With this you support the development of the add-on as well. Also follow me on my social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And I see you soon on Jayanam.